with all these things people are creating that aren't being created by professional software engineers, they're being created by people in the marketing teams and finance teams. What are the concerns of a professional software engineer that maybe they aren't aware of?
Welcome to Tool Tech meets the road, where CTOs share the tales and the comments. From startups to big names, innovations unfold. How many CTOs will share their stories untold?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take? My name is Scott Porad, and I'm here with my trusty co-host,
Brad Hefta-Gaub.
Brad. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I've been busy and it's been busy and fun.
Today's episode is
Yeah.
a What's on Your Mind episode.
All right.
Because it's been a while since we just talked about what's on our minds. What has been on your mind lately?
Let's see. One of the things that I've been really busy with lately and been on my mind a lot is security. And
Oh, tell
I've
me.
got, I've got multiple clients that I work with, and they're all going through various different stages of either preparing to have to really worry about security or having to worry about security and I personally, I don't know if you saw this, but there was just a amazing like exploit that got released as part of a standard LLM mini LLM package that is a Python package that a ton of people use, and somebody did a full secrets exploit. If you have installed this thing. Now, fortunately, I don't install this thing. I don't have this thing installed. None of the teams I work with have it installed. But it was like literally getting environment variables, secrets, GitHub secrets. It was going after crypto wallets. And it's just like, boom, that kind of stuff is happening all over the place.
And I've heard about this. It did not affect me or the company I'm working for, but was this a malicious attack or was this the LLM going off on its own and being rogue?
No, this was a supply chain, an intentional malicious supply chain attack by somebody who knew what they were doing. And
Okay.
it was very hard. Somebody found it. It was very well obscured.
We had an incident last week as well, and I wonder, I actually don't know what it was because we CrowdStrike caught it for us in just a matter of seconds, and it was also a supply chain issue. I wonder if it was the same thing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I will say security and AI and packages and supply chain, that's on my mind. I'll tell you that.
Okay, it's interesting because that is on my mind also, but in a different way. But I want to ask you a question first before we explore that. Do you remember about 2001 or so, Microsoft like called a code red, and like for 6 months they just went on like security, like we got to fix all of our bugs, security
Yeah,
holes. Do you remember
right.
that?
Sure.
I have a very uncomfortable feeling that we are about to head into another era like that
Oh,
of
for
just
sure.
security vulnerabilities all over the place.
This speaks to the other sort of things, and I posted this on LinkedIn. I basically posted something on LinkedIn the other day where I was like, "Hey, two credential theft stories that are kind of related, and one's easy and one's hard. And the easy one is this exploit that kind of popped, this week. And but the other one is I am convinced that all of the LLM data, like Anthropic and OpenAI, is just littered with secret keys. And
Yeah.
I have the following evidence I have for it. I was setting up a package. It was a basic scaffolding for a React Native web app, and it's open source, and it was really well done with respect to it. All of it, it had no secrets in the code, and it had a very clear README on how to set up all your secrets, to either install them as part of your GitHub secrets or use a secrets manager or you set them up in your environment variables. But like the code was very much like, secret agnostic. I asked Claude Code to, hey, go set this up for me and configure it and get the basic framework up and running. And it was running away, and I looked over and I noticed that it was generating database passwords and generating API keys for various services like, Supabase and Expo and all these basic tools that this framework was based on. And it was literally passing these secrets through the LLM in clear text. And I had to go, stop, 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 stop. No, no, no. Don't do that. Don't do that. But by default, it was basically just passing secrets in clear text. And that means that it's sitting in a log file somewhere in Anthropic. And if Anthropic ever gets hacked, all that
Hmm.
stuff is going to get exposed. Like, I doubt that Anthropic would ever violate my secrets. But
Hmm.
if they ever get hacked, all those secrets are going to get exposed.
How did the LM get the secrets? It read them from something you had told it to set up.
Oh, these setup instructions were like configure Supabase. So, Supabase
Hmm.
is a, online database
Hmm.
platform. So, Supabase command line basically says create database, and it like you have to set your own password when you create the database. And so it
I
went off
see.
and ran a cryptography library to come up with a random password, took its value and used that to go create the database.
Hmm. Interesting.
Right? If you were the sysadmin, right, you would have done that manually. You would have been like, "Oh, I need to set up this database. I'm going to go
Hmm.
create a secret. I'm going to go store my secret in my secrets manager. I'm going to go set up the database." And at no point would you have been passing. You're not emailing those to your DevOps team saying, "Hey, here's the password I want you to use on the database you're setting up, please."
Right. Yeah, you use some sort of disappearing ink kind of thing
Yeah, exactly.
to pass those around. Interesting. Okay, so here's the thing I had recently happen that's been on my mind. We had a false alarm where it appeared that using Lovable, somebody at our company had exposed all of our company's data by plugging it into our data warehouse. Now,
Mm.
between Lovable and getting to the data warehouse, there was a page where you had to authenticate with Okta, and so it wasn't a risk. But at first, it was like, oh, this is really, 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 really bad.
Yeah. In other words, like the fear in the moment was somebody minted some kind of a token that has enough credentials to read our database, and that token was put up into Lovable, so Lovable's got access to that token, something like
Or
that.
I don't know, I don't know. We use Snowflake, so maybe Lovable has some Snowflake connector, so you can like just. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but okay. The point is this: we've got company values, okay, and we've got two values that are in conflict at the moment.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
going to abbreviate these. One value is obsess over customers, and the other is move fast. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the tip of the spear on the AI stuff is saying, hey, our values say move fast.
Yeah.
And the InfoSec guy is saying, hey, our values say don't lose our customer data.
Yeah.
And as the CTO, I feel stuck in the middle. I
Yeah.
actually don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate this. On the one hand, yes, I absolutely want people to move fast, experiment with these things, figure out how to do stuff with it. So the landscape and the marketplace is changing, and I want people using these tools and figuring it out. That's the tip of the spear, move fast crew. On the other hand, I think about it this way. With all these things people are creating that aren't being created by professional software engineers, they're being created by people in the marketing teams and finance teams. What are the concerns of a professional software engineer that maybe they aren't aware of? Stability and scalability and performance and cost and those kinds of
Security.
things, and security. And all of those things are two-way doors with the exception of security, meaning if you're not scaling or if it's not stable or if it's costing too much, you can either shut it down or you can throw people at it to try and figure it out and make it better. But that security is a one-way door. Once your customer data goes out the door, it's never coming back.
Yep.
And I'm just in the midst of it, trying to think about and navigate how are we going to handle this in our company?
Yeah, and I guess that's part of but the point behind my story, right? Like
Yeah,
I I think I know a thing or two about security.
yeah.
And it was a demo app of a framework and so it doesn't matter, like there's no customer data in it.
Hmm.
So like the AI agent was, it was being professional, it was being proficient, it was doing things mostly correctly, but it was this one thing that it didn't consider about the fact that it was passing information. It was treating the security in a way that it was treating it like it was in a sandbox, when in fact it was sending itself back and forth to this cloud-based LLM, right? And it was so fast and it was so subtle, and it only happened because I glanced out of the corner of my eye and watched it do this command, and I was like, "Oh shit, I can't. No, wait, did you just do that?" Like I had to like rewind the tape and go, wait, did you just do that? And then I
Hmm.
had to basically stop it because it had done the similar move already a couple times. So I was just like, fuck this whole like all my databases and all the environments that it just set up for me. I got to tear all those down because, all the keys were basically like burned at that point. And it's like then I got to go. And that's the funny part about that is to then tell the agent, hey, I still want you to set this up, but don't do it in a way that you're passing the secrets. Then it's like the agent's got to work extra overtime to basically write scripts that it's going to run locally and not, and it's just, and so and I talked to some of the engineers on one of the teams I'm working with. I talked to them about that. I told them the story, and they were like, "Oh yeah, dude, like there's no way that tens of thousands of people aren't making that mistake every single day today, and they don't notice it."
What about the key rotation agent you have that you say, hey, every night go run around our environment and change all of our keys so that we're secure?
Right. Right.
Yeah, man, it is weird times out there, man.
Well, if an external bad actor hacks Anthropic and gets into their logs and their telemetry, right, is able to basically see those chats.
Or OpenAI or Gemini or
Or
any of them.
yeah, I just picked
Yeah.
one of them, right? They're going to sit on
I guess this is where job security is be the human key rotator.
it. Maybe that sounds like a grim job, but yeah.
I mean, I met a guy this week. This is his business, his job. He has a specialty and he fixes the chips in marble countertops in like kitchens. It gets easily chipped on the edge, and he's got a bunch of, he's a craftsperson, has a bunch of techniques that like he knows how to like do that.
Oh yeah,
Which, if you have a I don't have a marble countertop, but that is, I guess they chip easily because it's just stone. So, he's found this little niche for himself and he charges a lot because not a lot
yeah,
of people do this. He knows how to do it. So my point simply is, I guess maybe a human key rotator is a
yeah,
job of the future.
yeah.
Kids, if you're listening,
You were zooming the camera out and saying like you're sort of seeing this as well.
yes, it's a similar problem. It's a similar category, which is this is all moving so fast, and there's this one, and I guess it's okay to me that a lot of it moves fast. But you've pointed out an example. I've got an example of like, ooh, actually in this area it's not okay to move fast. This area, and it's over 30 years as an industry because this wasn't as much of a concern when it was just sort of client server local network kind of situation. So, like over 30 years as an industry, we've developed all these techniques and practices to prevent these problems
Yeah,
because they were real problems.
yeah,
And I just think at Jurassic Park, what was the expression? We're so focused on whether we could, we didn't think about whether we should.
yeah, right.
That's on my mind big time.
Yeah.
And it's probably, I mean, I think we're going to see some big breaches because of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a given. Well, by the way, a recent episode that you weren't able to attend because you were on a vacation or a business trip, but I was speaking with a security expert, and you know, the one of the points that we ended up talking a fair amount about was the fact that it's so easy for humans to essentially become fatalistic about whether there's anything they can do about security, and therefore
Hmm.
they then like just don't bother because they're
Hmm.
just there's what can I do about it, you know?
Hmm.
There are a combination of he made the point that there's a combination of evolutionary reasons why by default we're an interdependent species. We kind of have to trust each other. And there is a
Hmm.
percentage of us that are absolutely untrustworthy. But the
Hmm.
majority of us are trustworthy and we're so interdependent that we kind of default to trust. But if there's only 3% of us that are psychopaths or sociopaths, that's a lot of sociopaths out there.
You don't even need three of 3/10%.
Yeah.
3/10 of a tenth of a percent. What is that? I don't even know. That's a thousandth of a percent.
Yeah.
Well, so like we've developed things like SOC 2.
Hmm.
So, and that I'm sure came in response to some breaches and things like that, right? Do you think we're gonna get the next generation of that? Something like that'll come along?
Well, it's interesting you say that as I'm working with a team to working with one of my teams to get their SOC 2 compliance done, and I'm reminded by our work that we did at health tech company when we worked together last that I don't want to say that SOC 2 is like security theater, but it can be done in such a way that it's really just kind of checking boxes.
Totally.
how many people out there have SOC 2 logos on their, you know, on their websites and actually are just checking boxes.
I don't know, but I do know that when I have been in the situation of working towards SOC 2, I have preached to my teams. The most important thing is to actually be secure. I remember having an incident. I mean, it wasn't an incident, a conversation bordering on butting of heads with the CISO at a company I was at, who was asking us to do something to meet a compliance regulation. I was really frustrated by it. And I finally said, look, I will do this as long as you will just agree that this is less secure than what we have now.
Oh my God.
And she was like, yes, I understand your point. It is less secure. And I was like, okay, thank you.
That's wild that to meet some security requirement, you actually had to make it less secure.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we found a way to not do that, but like it was this the framework was saying do something a certain way, and we had done it a different way, which was better. So I've always just kind of said, like, tried to preach to the team, like, at the end of the day, I will go to bat with the auditor for the more secure option.
Yeah,
And we
totally.
should not be, I will fight to the death on that one because I actually want it to be secure.
Yeah.
The framework is just a guideline for how to get more secure. And by the way, it TaskRabbit, it saved our bacon recently. I mentioned it in this spot. It saved our bacon this week. Framework said had malware, have malware. Malware showed up. And you think to yourself, oh, malware, like blah blah blah. Malware system catches it within seconds, and you're safe.
Yeah.
And that was because the framework served as a guideline for us, and knock wood, paid big dividends.
Yeah, totally.
So that's on my mind. What else is on your mind?
Well, here's another thing that's on my mind. I love a good automated CICD, automated, high quality, like local dev, staging, production. I love it when you've got all that stuff dialed because I think it just makes your engineering team go so much faster.
So beautiful. It's just beautiful.
And I'm reminded of this because one of the teams I'm working with, which has a really good setup, they started building a new piece of their platform that was difficult to give themselves like dev, staging, and production.
Mhm,
And so they don't quite, it's like, it's different enough. It's like shared services and it's like so they don't have that. They don't have the clean automated. I mean, they have, they still have a deployment system, but they don't have the ability for the developers to run local builds,
mhm,
and they don't really have the ability. I've always told you about how this one team I'm thinking about, they've got as soon as a PR gets made, boom, an ephemeral environment kicks up, and anybody that wants to go
mhm,
play with the full stack ephemeral environment can go play with it and test it and critique it. But they've been starting to add some new services that are these shared services, and there's not a clean way to kind of create that. And it's slowed them down big time this past two
mm,
weeks. And I'm struck by it's not that they're going that much slower than anyone else would. In fact, I'm sure other teams go much slower, but they were so fast with
mhm,
their really well run dev ephemeral environment machine. They were
mhm.
so fast with that they look like they're crawling without it.
Yeah. One little bit of sand in the gears.
Is yeah, pretty serious piece of sand in the gears. Yeah.
Why is that whole smooth CI/CD ephemeral environment, blah blah blah, that whole stuff? Why is that so hard? You'd think that would just be like out of the box. We're 30 years into this. That should be out of the box.
Well, I mean, obviously, tools like Docker Compose or Kubernetes, these types of tools make it a lot easier, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
Um, those are relatively new tools, like 10 years old, they're not
I
like,
Docker Compose. Let's see. I did our first Docker in 2013. That's 13 years ago.
yeah.
Did my first Docker. That's a funny way of saying it, by the way.
My first Docker.
Sidebar. I had the hardest time understanding containers when they first came out. Like I knew machines, I knew VMs, and then containers. I was like, what? I don't get it. I mean, I figured it out obviously, but I was so confused at first.
Yeah, it's a good question. Why isn't that just out of the box? I think maybe I don't know. Maybe it's because there's just so many. I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. I think that like a lot of development teams think they don't need that sort. Like I think there's this, at least in the startup space that I'm in, right? The startup space that I'm
Mhm,
in, like you're so many people are just like, I just got to get it up, crank this out really quick. Like the demo, like they're trying to crank out the demo, right? And I
Hmm.
think with like AI coding agents, it's going to be even more of this where it's like you can ask the agent to build the thing and it builds like the full thing running and you're like, woo, I got a whole app and everything, you know? But then to actually like make it have a clean deployment to production and then to say to yourself, well, I want to have this staging environment where I can let the stuff settle before I release it on the
Hmm.
public, you know? That's like you have to have
Hmm.
that thought process that say that you want that. And then to say, oh, I want to be able to actually like have full stacks that are ephemeral for every feature change. Like I think maybe that's a pretty sophisticated thing to want.
Maybe I thought GitHub had it, or maybe Microsoft, I should say, had it nailed for a while. They have this trifecta, this three-legged stool. They had Visual Studio Code, they have GitHub, and they have this thing called GitHub Code Spaces.
Yeah.
And I thought they were just going to make it all just like effortless to work together. And I know a few teams using it, but like it doesn't seem. I thought it was just going to take off like nobody's
Yeah.
business, but it doesn't seem like it did.
Maybe that's just because the architectures are always so different, you know, like how many different containers do you have in your cluster, you know?
But I
And
think that's what that I think. I don't know. I never really worked with it that closely. All right, here's another thing on my mind:
okay.
the kids.
Yeah.
So you and I both have kids that are in like their 20s, right?
I just listened to your episode with the that you had with the David Espinoza on with the AI co-host of his podcast. And
Oh yeah.
you guys talked about the kids.
Oh boy, did we? Because I don't remember what I said.
Yeah, you were just like, "Hey, what are we gonna do? Like if AI takes over all the jobs, entry level jobs, then what are the kids gonna do?"
That's well, I've been thinking about it more from what are the kids going to do perspective, not the job. I've been thinking, look,
Yeah, exactly. What are the kids gonna do?
I've got two young adults in their 20s. One has recently graduated college, one is still in college. And, I saw this report recently. It was pretty cool. It was a data visualizer of jobs in the United States. It had like from Bureau of Labor Statistics jobs. It had like, I don't know, 200 million different jobs, like actual individual jobs. It showed the number of jobs in each category, and then they were grouped by all these different categories, and then it was color coded, and you could have a little toggle where you could change what the colors meant. So you could have one which was like the growth of the sector, right? And then another toggle was the average income in the sector. And so like if you did average income, like low paying jobs were red and high paying jobs are green. So like the green ones were things like finance and tech, and those squares had sub-squares, which got more detailed. And then there was another, and I don't know how the author of this little visualizer got to this data exactly, but digital AI exposure. And you
Yep.
toggle that one, and it was like an inverse. All of a sudden, tech
Yep.
and finance went red, and things like labor went green, right?
Yep.
From red to green. And so it's got to be crazy hard to be 23 years old and graduating, or 22, 24, graduating from college right now.
Yep.
Unless you have got a really clear thing that you really, really want to do. Just trying to figure out what to do with all this uncertainty. Forget climate change, forget war in the Middle East, forget all that stuff. Just the AI thing and what that's doing to your head
Yeah.
about the rest of your life. I mean,
There's an engineer working for me he's like in his mid 30s and he's just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life.
yeah. Well, I have a friend who's our age. Uh, he hung it up. He's like, yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. It's been a great run. And I just don't think I have the energy to go learn it all again. He's not as excited about it like you and I've been excited about it. He's like, I'm going to go be a preschool teacher.
Yeah.
I like kids. I'm going to go hang out with kids all day. That'll be fun.
There you go.
So I've been thinking about that. Yeah, I've been thinking about not those little kids. I've been thinking about these college age kids who are graduating and who their whole world is so uncertain right now.
Yeah. As you know, I have kids the same age as yours, a little bit older, but basically in the same cohort. And yeah, it's a real concern. I guess if I try to put the CTO hat on for a second, take off my parent hat and put the CTO hat on, I think that I also, in a world where capitalism drives us to not hire junior people anymore
Hmm.
because the robots can do the job,
Hmm.
what's the end game there? Because you, how do people become senior? They become
Right.
senior and experienced by first being inexperienced and junior. So if we're not hiring any new talent, then eventually all the old talent ages out. Is the end game that we think the AI will eventually reach that level and they'll be taking those jobs too? And so we don't need any more senior engineers. We don't need any more architects. We don't need any more principal engineers because
I don't know.
we're not gonna grow them anymore if we're not hiring junior people.
So I've worked on consumer products for my whole career. I mean, I worked on consumer products. I worked on some B2B businesses, but they've always sort of been consumer products. But that's relatively high level. There still needs to be people to work on lower, there's still people working at Anthropic, and there's still people working at the layers below Anthropic, who I don't know, working on GPUs or whatever, and figuring out how to make these data centers. So maybe actually the tech jobs actually just get pushed lower in the stack. The tech jobs have been moving up and up and up the stack for my whole career. And now they're like at the very top. It's like, oh, you just talk to Whisper. What's this Whisper thing called now? Whisper, I can't remember you know what to talk about?
No.
Oh, I haven't tried it yet. I just heard about it this week. It's basically Siri,
Uh-huh.
you know, but it's a new version of Siri called Whisper. It's not by Apple.
Whisper. Okay. Whisper flow.
Whisper Flow, yes.
Think it, speak it.
It's just a much better like voice
Yeah.
thing. And so now the programming has moved all the way up to where you're just talking to it. You're just saying, "Hey Alexa, can you write me a fantasy football app to
Right.
share with my friends?" I'm not making this up. In the last 24 hours, I've gotten two apps from two different friends. One of them wrote an app for like baseball, another wrote an app for golf. And they're little fantasy sports games. And these two, well, one of them is a former computer programmer, one of them has nothing to do with computer programming. So now they're just saying, "Hey, Alexa, write me an app for my friends and I to play fantasy baseball." Right? That's
Right.
like we moved all the way up to the top of the stack. But maybe the real tech jobs are actually going down the stack. Because something has to be underneath all this stuff. Or maybe are the robots figuring that out? Are the robots going to write the chips? Like, how's that all going to work? Well,
Well, okay. I would say like I'll say I agree that there's people with computer science degrees that really understand kind of low level things like compilers and operating systems and kind of like really understand architecture. I think those people's jobs are more secure for longer. I think that's a
hmm
given. But there are a lot fewer people in those jobs than people who are described as software
yeah,
developers,
that's
right?
right.
I mean, I can't count the number of times in my career that I've had been working in organizations where, I mean, there's always people that are much more skilled and people that are less skilled.
hmm
And, you might recall during the time that you and I worked together at Health Tech Co., it was a seller's market. Like engineers were jumping ship all over the place, and there was just like
hmm
this massive demand for engineers during that kind of that COVID boom and things. And I think that there were a lot of people that got hired as engineers who were not as talented as the engineers that you know, are the ones building these low level things, right? Like I
hmm
think, we got people that were kind of coming out of code boot camps and getting
hmm
landing jobs as, full stack software engineers. That's the stuff that the AI agents can do trivially now, right? So
hmm
those people certainly are either going to have to rapidly up level their skills, and that might be
hmm
really hard, or those jobs are for sure going to get washed out.
Yeah, and maybe there's just many fewer jobs in the tech industry, but they're much more technically demanding.
That would be my that I'm an over on that outcome, right?
Yeah,
I think that's the more likely outcome.
but that doesn't account for if you were interested in going into accounting, or if you were interested in going into any other of the 75% of the jobs in the economy that AI is going to get to.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's bookkeepers, those jobs are easily replaced, and accountants are less likely to be replaced, and there's like a difference there, right?
A little bit,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I just use that as one example, but it seems like there are so many jobs that are going to be affected,
uh-huh.
so many industries that are going to be affected.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Hey, you know what's not going to be affected? I see the guitar on the wall behind you.
Musicians?
Guitar repairmen
Well, I guess so,
or
sure.
women. I can say repairman because I recently took a guitar to get repaired,
Hmm.
and it was all dudes.
Yeah. Ever tell you the story about that? I had to take my amp in one time back when I was in my regular playing days, and my amp had all these like punk rock stickers all over it. And one of the stickers on my amp was from a band called we'll have to keep this clean, but I won't be able to say the true band name, but it was the band name was FS Up, right?
Okay. We swear on this podcast all the
Oh
time, by
yeah,
the
okay.
way.
The band name was Fuck Shit Up. And it was a sticker on my amp that said fuck shit up. And I took my amp in to get repaired, and they had to basically like unscrew something to get to the inside of the amp, and had to cut through my sticker. But I wasn't there when I dropped my amp off. And so when I got my amp back, they had like carefully with like an X-Acto knife cut just enough of the sticker to be able to open my amp up and
Mhm.
then repaired it as nice as they could. And I was just like, you could have just taken that sticker off. And they were like, well, I didn't see who you were, but you bring an amp here with a sticker that says "fuck shit up," and I didn't want you to fuck my shit up for ruining your sticker.
It's a pretty punk rock sticker.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we've digressed today, Brad.
We have digressed, but there you go. We covered, the rise and fall of security thanks to AI, the rise and fall of the economy thanks to AI, and the rise and fall of guitar amps thanks to punk rock stickers.
That's right. All right. Well, with that, let's call it a day.
Let's call it a day and another episode of How Many CTOs? And what do we say?
Smash that subscribe button.
Rate and review.
Rate and review. See you next week.
See you next week, Scott.
Bye, Brad.
Bye. This episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast was edited by Saffron Hefta-Gaub. Our theme song was AI generated by Brad. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at How Many CTOs Pod. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, and Patreon, or at our website at howmanyctospod.com. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for listening.